9:05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Welcome into the Chris Hand Show. We got a lot to go through today, including what I have deemed the Republican Civil War on Twitter over the weekend. Where it started, how we got there. I was talking to my wife. This Israel-Gaza conflict is by far one of the most polarizing topics I've ever had to deal with. And it seems like there's two groups. A group that wants to be able to ask questions, at least in the conservative party. I'm not take the left-wing radicals out of it, but in the conservative Republican Party, it seems like there's two groups when it comes to this. A group that wants to be able to ask questions and have debate, and a group who just wants to say whatever Israel does is the right way to go, no matter what. I can't believe you said that. You're anti-Semitic. Anybody else feel like that? I certainly feel like that. If you don't fall within the preconceived talking points that guys like Ben Shapiro are putting out there, you're an anti-Semite. And I worry that if they keep throwing around this term anti-Semite, eventually we're going to find ourselves in a position like you're racist. It's just not going to mean anything anymore. And I'll get to how I came to that conclusion here in a minute. But I want to start with where I started over the weekend. And I thought this was such a good tweet. And I thought that this was going to lead to more discussion over the weekend, but it didn't. It quickly devolved into chaos. So Joel Pollock, he's the senior at-large editor on Breitbart. He hosts Breitbart News on Sirius XM. He's a smart guy. He put out a tweet on, I believe this was, October 14th, so Saturday morning. It said, this is his tweet, and this has made me think that we were going to have some really good discussion over the weekend. I'm taking down the first tweet I posted on X when I learned about the terror attack by Hamas against Israeli civilians last Saturday, and I'm apologizing for it because it's hurtful and it's dangerous, and if it's left up, it serves as any kind of justification for evil. And then he says, continued. My first reaction when I heard the shocking news from Israel was to do whatever I could to defend my people, from attack. I raced home from my synagogue, interrupting Shabbat and the Jewish holiday. I felt I had to do something, anything. I sent a tweet urging Israel to wipe out Gaza after evacuating civilians, aside from military-age men. My exact words were, I have broken the Shabbat and the Jewish holiday. Deliver this message. Israel should wipe out Gaza, allow 48 hours to evacuate women, children, and the elderly, destroy everything that remains, plow it under, and annex it to Israel. This is the end for Hamas and Palestinian terror. We have all, this is Joel Pollock from Breitbart on Sirius XM. He goes on to say, we've all said things we regret in the moment of anger and fear and sadness, even to people we love. Generally, I avoid social media when I'm angry or upset, precisely for this reason. I don't want to see Palestinians killed. I just want to see Israelis live. If I had to write the same tweet today, it would be something like this. I have broken the Shabbat and Jewish holiday to deliver this message. Israel should do whatever is necessary to defend its people. Hamas must be destroyed, and Palestinians must reject violence. This is the end for Hamas and Palestinian terror. So I'm taking down my original tweet. I could leave it up defiantly, but that's not who I am. I do believe in clarifying, and I also believe in making amends. I want Israelis and Palestinians to live in peace together. I also want Palestinians to stop murdering Israelis. That's a precondition for any kind of peace. I'm greatly encouraged by the fact that the Arab and Muslim Israelis have stood together with the Jewish Israelis, and am deeply grateful to the friends, including Arab and Muslim friends, who have reached out to me. I want people who say they care about Palestinians to start criticizing terrorism and stop defending, even celebrating terror. The fact that they are still justifying terror does not excuse my own tweet last Saturday. We're all individually morally responsible for our own actions and words, and I don't believe what I said was correct. So he corrected his tweet. And it was one of the things that I first said when this all broke down, that the genocide, let's go wipe them off the face of the earth, turn Gaza to glass rhetoric made me feel uncomfortable. And it made me feel like we were all being emotionally manipulated, and that there was only one approved talking point, and it was genocide. That's how I felt when this whole conflict first broke out after the terrorist attack by Hamas. And Joel Pollock does a great way of saying it much more eloquently than I can, why he let his emotions get the best of him and why he had to change his statement. So as that's happening, I'm like, wow, okay, This is a big admission. People are chiming in. Candace Owens jumps in. Well said. All sorts of prominent conservatives. Scott Adams, Dilbert man, says respect. You get people like Lauren Chen, who's local here in Nashville, says this is very mature and a lot of introspection in the aftermath of a horrifically violent attack. Respect. And people are patting this guy on the back saying, like, yes, we shouldn't be calling for genocide. It was great that you had this kind of awakening. Then we fast forward, and just a few hours later, Charlie Kirk is being raked through the coals and called an anti-Semite for what he said on the Patrick Bet David podcast. So what did Charlie Kirk say on the Patrick Bet David podcast that made people think that he's just a raging anti-Semite, which couldn't be further from the truth. But what did he say that made people accuse him of that? Well, he asked questions like, how did this happen? How dare you ask questions? Well, he did. He said, how did this happen? Hey, Matt, give me some audio. This is Charlie Kirk on the Patrick Bet David podcast.
When I first heard this story, I still had the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu is basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked.
And I've been saying that the entire time. Since day one, how do you get through that border? Questions need to be asked. One of the most surveilled countries in the world. You have the Iron Dome. You have a very heavily militarized border. How does that squeak through? How? You had people saying that Egypt was warning Israel. You have congressmen going on record saying that Egypt warned Israel. And we're not allowed to ask that question because it's anti-Semitic. But this is what really got Charlie in trouble, was asking this question right here.
But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand-down order? Was there a stand-down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is. Yeah. And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools, and by reports, 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long wait for help as massacre unfolds in Israel.
9
I can't think of
hours.
a more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be very, so I'm not exactly.
Well, I think we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here.
Was there a stand-down order? I think that's a very good question to ask. Was there a stand-down order? But you start asking those questions, you're going to be immediately labeled an anti-Semite. Immediately. Which I think is very troubling, because I think that you can have questions about a government and not questions about a religion. If the government's in turmoil and they're on the verge of a civil war, and now all of a sudden, because of this attack, they have a unity party and people are no longer protesting Benjamin Netanyahu, who also, remind you, got us into the Iraq War in 2003, the same guy. Now all of a sudden, it's America on September 12th. You know, everybody's just rah rah, let's go get him, and nobody questions what's happening in front of them on the ground. Was there a stand down order? If it wasn't a stand down order, What else could it be?
It's possible that the Netanyahu government was double-crossed by bad agents. Okay? That's dark, but it's not as dark as what we're talking about. Okay? Another aspect is that Netanyahu might have traitors in his government, like legitimate traitors that have infiltrated. I was texting with some senior people in the IDF, and they said, Charlie, I can't say too much, but let's just say the same problem you have with the left in America, we have here in Israel. So there's something to think about. Just something to think about, right? Is that maybe there's some people within those intel agencies that aren't as sympathetic. Or maybe, Patrick, maybe, they might have gotten a tip, they might have gotten whispers, but no one thought it would be 1,200 Jews dead.
So powerful stuff coming out of Charlie Kirk, questions that need to be asked. And I don't think that any of those questions mean that he's anti-Israel or anti-Jewish faith. But that's where the talking points have gone. Ben Domenech, I don't know who this guy is. He's from Fox News, and he's married to Meghan McCain. He goes on Twitter and says, if Charlie Kirk remains the head of TPUSA, the right has an anti-Semite problem that will follow them into the coming elections. Oh, weird. A fake Republican is mad because Charlie Kirk doesn't seem to be 100% fully advocating for war and genocide. Oh, jeez. Oh, the Ben is married to Meghan McCain. I know the McCains in general have never seen a war in the Middle East they didn't want to jump jump right into. It's unbelievable. But they call him anti-Semitic over those comments. Kirk put out a statement on Twitter. He said, funny, for the last 4 years, I've been accused of being a Jewish shill. So this is new. At TPUSA, we sponsor 300 young people a year to visit Israel. Daily on campus, we offer pro-Israel activism supplies to hundreds of thousands of students. We hosted multiple young Jewish leadership summits over the years with thousands of Jewish students in attendance. 3 weeks ago, we kicked a Jew hater out of an event at ASU and did so publicly. So he snuck back in, giving me a chance to tell him I don't put up with Jew hatred of any kind at our events or inside the conservative movement. And he posts a link to that as well. We've also successfully thwarted BDS campaigns at dozens of universities. This is libel, he says to Ben Domenech. You know nothing of what you speak except a 2-minute video clip where I was asked questions about the intel failures of the Israeli government, which were reported by Axios and others. If stuff like this continues, Israel will lose support from a major faction of voices on the right. Support Israel, and you get called a Jew hater. This is a repugnant lie from the pit of hell. You should be ashamed, and they should be ashamed. But that's where we are currently. If you're not just going full Ben Shapiro on the Israel-Gaza war that's happening now, which all started with the Hamas terrorist attack, you're an anti-Semite. That's just the way it is. And it went on. There was so much infighting in the conservative movement over the weekend. Candace Owens jumped into the fray about the fact that Charlie Kirk was called an anti-Semite. She said, this is legitimately comical, LMAO. If you want to measure just how disingenuous neocons are being in their effort to demand war, look no further than Charlie Kirk being labeled an anti-Semite. Charlie has endured years of being confronted on college campuses from protesters accusing him of being a Zionist shill. He is known to be radically pro-Israel and minted countless pro-Israel initiatives across college campuses. There are hours upon hours of footage available on the internet of Charlie Kirk defending Israel, even from within its borders. If Charlie Kirk is an anti-Semite, then the categorization carries no real meaning, and accusations of it will unfortunately elicit no response in the future, and that is the fear. You're going to keep calling people anti-Semites because they don't want to not ask questions about how this happened. Like, you can't just let people tell you, shut up, accept the main story, when we have decades upon decades of evidence of the actual story being reported being proven to be false. Why can't we ask questions? It's so interesting to me. There's more on this and more from the Republican Civil War on social media. I mean, there were some heavyweights getting involved. Vivek Ramaswamy threw his hat into the ring. Megyn Kelly. We had comments from Tim Pool, who was receiving backlash for one of his for his editor at Timcast News, just showing what's happening in Gaza. It's crazy. It's fun, but it's crazy. 921 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Hey, phone lines are open if you got comments on any of this stuff. Super text line is there for you as well. 615-737-9986. Mac Morey producing, celebrating that Chiefs win over the weekend. Ken Weaver in the newsroom, and you on the phones and text lines. It's the Chris Hand Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Having a little trouble leaving a voice or text message? We'll tell you what's going on at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. 9:26 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Mac Morey, the producer. Ken Weaver in the newsroom. You on the Super Text line and the phone line, 615-737-9986.
See this, looking at the text line here, Chris. See that text you just got? 6436?
Oh, I did. Yeah, read it for me.
Your hatred of Israel is blaring this morning.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. It didn't take long. Didn't take long for those texts to come in.
Thank you, 6436.
But this is what we're talking about. You can't ask questions anymore without being called about this conflict, about this war, about the terror attack, without being called an anti-Semite. Just asking a question? You're not allowed to ask a question? 0960 said, you never go full Mark Levin. I love Mark, but he's wrong on this, Ukraine, and Kevin McCarthy. LOL. Yeah. But people aren't allowed to ask these questions. In case you missed it, Charlie Kirk has been called an anti-Semite because he said this.
But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is. Yeah. And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools and by reports 6 hours. Let's say it's 3 hours.
That's suspect. Go ahead, Rob.
It's also not like a right-wing reporting. This is from the New York Times. The long wait for help as massacre unfolds in Israel.
9
I can't think of a
hours.
more liberal news outlet than the New York Times.
And by the way, I'm actually very pro-Israel. So let me be so I'm not exactly.
Well, I think we all are.
No, I just want to make sure my position is clear here.
I like how he closes it with, let me be very clear. I'm actually very pro-Israel. And then everybody goes, you anti-Semite? What are you doing? You can't say that. Okay. But this has been the internet over the weekend. It's been absolutely on fire. It's been fun to watch from a step back standpoint and kind of just observing it all and seeing what you're allowed to say without being accused of being an anti-Semite and what you're not allowed to say without being accused of being an anti-Semite. But we're going to touch more on that. Also get into Megyn Kelly's comments, Vivek Ramaswamy, and more after the news with Ken Weaver, which starts right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
"9:30 on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now in Nashville, Channel 4 says Verizon is working to resolve an outage. Verizon saying cellular data, voice, and text messages are limited right now in Nashville. The company says most issues are resolved within 12 hours. The United States is trying to broker a deal with Egypt to open its crossing with Gaza. This is the latest in the Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Egyptian authorities say they will not open that crossing unless Israel agrees to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. The U.S. also positioning another aircraft carrier in the area. And in our nation's capital, Republican lawmakers continue their search for a House Speaker, a vote set for tomorrow. But the nominee, Jim Jordan, does not appear to have the votes to take the Speaker's gavel. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
What is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran?
Don't.
That was our resident in chief, Joe Biden, over the weekend on 60 Minutes, striking fear into the heart of the Hamas holes and Hezbollah.
Don't.
Thank you, sir. Nailed it.
I'm frightened.
Calm down. It's going to be okay. This is the kind of strength and leadership we need.
Don't.
All right.
Pretty sure he does what he wants you to, not do it. He wants you to don't.
Well, no, I don't know if he was clear.
Don't.
All right.
All right.
All right, nailed it. So we were talking about the civil war happening in conservative Twitter land over the weekend, and Charlie Kirk being called an anti-Semite for his comments, which is just absolutely garbage. Like, just on its face, it holds no merit. Like, there's no merit to that. None. And I know a lot of the guys over at Turning Point USA. If you were privy to some of these group chats, you wouldn't have any doubt that they're pro-Israel. But they're also pro-thought, pro-asking questions, and that's where Charlie is, being able to ask questions. I have some questions. I do. I have questions. Well, one of my questions that I don't see being asked enough, right? Let me start with this. Okay, so over the weekend, world-class diplomat Antony Blinken, he was in Doha, in Qatar, and he's telling Middle Eastern leaders that there can be no more business as usual with the Palestinian militant group Hamas. All right? He said that in Qatar on Saturday. Okay? That's where he was. Or no, this was Friday. I'm sorry. He's in Qatar. No more business as usual. Okay? Do you know who else is in Qatar? Oh, the Hamas whole leaders. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh met with Iran's foreign minister on Saturday in Qatar, where they discussed the Palestinian militant group's deadly attack in Israel. And I see this, and I wonder why we're not allowed to ask this question. If we are going after Hamas, and we know they're in Qatar, and our leaders are in Qatar, Israel knows they're in Qatar, why is the war happening in Gaza? If we're so pro-Israel, so anti-Hamas, why are we letting leadership hang out in Qatar and not going after them? Why? I don't think that's a strange question to ask. In fact, part of me thinks it's probably one of the only questions to ask. Why can't we go after leadership where they are? Well, Qatar is really only known for money. It's one of the world's wealthiest nations. Estimated GDP of about $180 billion in 2021. It's on the coast of the Persian Gulf. It's on the other side of Saudi Arabia. It has access to prominent trade routes. Maybe logistically it would be a nightmare to go after Qatar. But when I see the destruction that's happening in Gaza, and then I'm also being told that the leaders of Hamas who executed this terrorist attack are in Qatar, why are they bombing the hell out of Gaza then? You have the bombs, you have the Air Force, you have the military. Why not go after the leadership? Why not go after the leadership that's providing them safe haven in Qatar? Like, everybody gets so gung-ho about war, but the only people that are losing in this war right now are, at least to me, you look at some of the action on the ground, it feels like it's, and I know that the talking point, oh, well, Hamas uses them as a human shield. But it seems like it's civilians being hurt. There's no innocent Palestinians. It's like, well, if you look at a video of a poor kid who just lost his whole family covered in debris and blood, it's hard to not feel bad. I also find the fact that if Putin did this to Kyiv, what Israel is doing to Gaza right now, we would be launching a full onslaught, full-scale offensive. So, again, I ask, why are we not going after the Hamas leaders in Qatar if we know they're there? Who are you sending a message to, letting leadership slide, knowing they're in Qatar? We got to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth, except if they're in Qatar. That's base. You know what I mean? You play tag? Can't get me here. I'm on base. Just seems weird. Like, if the rhetoric is, we got to get rid of them no matter what, every Hamas leader has to be destroyed, except the ones in Qatar. Except those ones. Just seems off. Sandra says it's because they use Gaza to strike Israel. Yeah, and they plan those attacks in Qatar. They plan them out of the country. And we know where the leadership is. Why can't we go after the leadership? Just feels off. Of course, across college campuses last week and over the weekend, you're seeing all of these students being pro-Palestine marches and demonstrations and rallies. And Vivek Ramaswamy is now under fire because of a tweet that he put out. He put out a tweet that said, "The Harvard student groups who co-signed the anti-Israel letter are simple fools. But it's not productive for companies to blacklist kids for being members of student groups that make dumb political statements on campus. Colleges are spaces for students to experiment with ideas, and sometimes kids join clubs that endorse boneheadedly wrong ideas. I've been as vocal as anyone in criticizing left-wing cancel culture, but it's bad no matter who practices it. It wasn't great when people wearing Trump hats were fired from work. It wasn't great when college graduates couldn't get hired unless they signed oppressive DEI pledges. And it's not great now if companies refuse to hire kids who are part of student groups that once adopted the wrong view on Israel. This isn't a legal point. It's a cultural point. I say this as someone who vehemently disagrees with those Harvard student groups. Those calling for blacklisting students right now are responding from a place of understandable hurt, but I'm confident that in the fullness of time, they will agree with me on the wisdom of avoiding these cancel culture tactics." I agree with Vivek. And I think a lot of people are operating from that standpoint that he mentions of understandable hurt. But given the fullness in time, they'll agree on the wisdom of avoiding these cancel culture tactics. I agree with that. Not everybody agrees with that. Some do. But this goes back to the conservative civil war on Twitter over the weekend. Vivek says that kids shouldn't be blacklisted from jobs because they're at these pro-Palestinian rallies. Megyn Kelly jumps into the fray, and she says, if they're not persuaded that murdering babies is wrong, there's no persuading them. We don't hire those who do the killing, and we won't hire those who applaud the killers while the savagery is underway. If you're open to hiring one of these lunatics, though, good to know. Okay. I don't think that Vivek was saying that. He was saying that young kids do dumb things. Of course, to some of these radicals, and I don't know how Megyn Kelly feels about it, but, they also think that 3-year-olds can choose their gender. But Megyn Kelly, you've got to be kidding me. They sided with terrorists who murdered children and old women. You're not clear on this as someone who wants to be president. I mean, again, it just feels like you're not allowed to say the wrong thing right now in the conservative world. If you step out of line on your opinion just a little bit, you're terrible, you're an idiot, you're an anti-Semite. Candace Owens weighed in on what Megyn Kelly said. She said, "Oh, stop it. This is incredibly disingenuous, Megyn. You know that many of those students are not out there because they want babies to be murdered, clearly. College kids are stupid, also clearly. I used to be radically pro-choice, says Candace Owens. Glad I didn't get put on a conservative blacklist for wanting babies murdered. As it turned out, I was just young and temporarily brainwashed from a public school education system coupled with mainstream Hollywood lies. And not because I legitimately wanted to see infants torn from their mother's wombs. Dr. Thomas Sowell used to be a radical socialist who ardently supported communism. Thankfully, he wasn't put on a conservative blacklist and accused of being a person who wanted worldwide suffering and starvation as socialism and communism bring. Students are young and experimenting. You're an adult woman who is advocating for their lives to be permanently pigeonholed because they have the wrong ideas, which are likely being spoon-fed to them in their classrooms. She's exactly right. The victim in a lot of these situations are the students who are being absolutely manipulated by these woke college professors and ideologues. But we should just cancel these kids forever. You said something wrong at 19 and showed up to the wrong place. I mean, we literally watched an entire summer of college kids cheering on Black Lives Matter as they destroyed American cities. There weren't conservatives calling for them to be blacklisted or canceled. But again, you go outside this realm of what's acceptable to debate. You go outside of that Overton window and boom, conservatives and liberals alike will cancel you. It's interesting. It's interesting to see which conservatives who support free speech are saying things like calling Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite or telling Megyn Kelly or someone like Megyn Kelly saying you need to be put on a blacklist and canceled for having the wrong opinion. I'm old enough to remember when wrong opinions were like, I don't know if the COVID vaccine will work. Don't you remember the wrong opinion of, I think COVID might have come from the Wuhan lab? They canceled us for that. They blacklisted us for that. You're probably still on the list for that. Just ridiculous. List making never ends well. And these college kids do need to be given some grace for being young, dumb college kids. And I also think that their professors and the school systems need to be held accountable for what they're pumping into these poor kids' heads. That's my take on it. Other conservatives won't agree with that. There's lots of conservatives getting into the fray. Even Dan Crenshaw, old eye patch McCain, who's never met a Middle Eastern war that he didn't like, said to Candace Owens, yeah, being a part of a mainstream political movement and being a terrorist apologist are just different, but hire him if you want him. Thanks, Dan. Dan Crenshaw. It's funny to me, the ones that are most against conservatives asking questions or being rational in this time, I don't know. It seems like they're all neocons. See, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like they're all neocons. There's more. I mean, this stuff on Twitter over the weekend was like rapid fire. Conservatives versus conservatives. Meanwhile, the real issue slips away from us. And we can't have the real conversations that we want to have. Like, how did those Hamas terrorists get in there? How? That's a real question.
But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question.
It is a legitimate non-conspiracy question, but if you ask it, you get labeled an anti-Semite. Crazy. I'm old enough to remember when America was pro-free speech. Weird. 9:51 on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Got a crash now. It is 40 eastbound, just east of downtown. The right lane is blocked. Having trouble voice or text messaging this morning? Got a story for you coming up at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It's 9:57 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Did you guys know that the McDonald's universe is in disarray too? Did you know this?
No, what's going on?
What's that going to do to chicken nuggets?
Well, we're going to find out. I don't know if they're halal, but so in Israel, McDonald's is donating thousands of free meals to the Israel Defense Forces and citizens. It's pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, in Oman, the McDonald's in Oman stands with Gaza. They released a corporate statement saying McDonald's Oman offers our humanitarian sympathy for our brothers and sisters in Gaza. And then McDonald's in Pakistan also had to jump in with an official statement. McDonald's in Pakistan is a local enterprise with full ownership and operation. We are not affiliated with McDonald's operations in Israel, which is a locally owned Israeli enterprise. McDonald's Israel operates as a separate entity to McDonald's Pakistan and makes its own business communications decisions independent of our business in Pakistan. So, you know that the world has gone mad when there are now competing McDonald's factions within the ranks.
Yeah, having to explain each other.
It's like, whoa, we don't agree with the McDonald's across the street, bro. We're on this side of the block.
Their Big Macs are made a little bit different.
I mean, it's like, it reminds me of the 80s and 90s when the LA street gang Crips fractured upon Crip lines. And you had Crips fighting Crips. That's what's happening in McDonald's right now. It's like, you guys all rep the Golden Arches. Come on. Let's figure this thing out. It's 9:59 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the latest headlines for you on Super Talk.
Ten o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories, and we've got that crash just east of downtown. It's 40 eastbound at the Fairfield Avenue on-ramp. The right lane is blocked. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Channel 4 says Verizon is having some issues this morning. You might have noticed, you might see that your voice and text messages are limited right now in Nashville. Well, Verizon says that they are working on this issue. They're not saying what it is, but they say these issues are usually resolved within 12 hours. The U.S. trying to broker a deal with Egypt to open its crossing with Gaza, but Egyptian authorities say they won't open the crossing unless Israel agrees to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. The U.S. is also positioning another aircraft carrier in the area as the Israel-Hamas war carries on.
The second carrier strike group will join the USS Ford and its warships already in the Mediterranean. This is meant as a deterrent to Iran and especially its proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon. Those warships will also be there to respond to what the White House calls any contingency.
That is Martha Raddatz reporting. Over in our nation's capital, Republican lawmakers continue their search for a House Speaker. A vote set for tomorrow, but Rachel Scott says the nominee does not appear to have the votes.
The leading Republican candidate right now is Congressman Jim Jordan. The Ohio conservative is backed by Donald Trump. He won the GOP nomination for the job, but 55 Republicans voted against him, and he can only afford to lose the support of 4 to become the next Speaker of the House.
That conference set to meet again later tonight. And the U.S. District Judge that is presiding over the election conspiracy case against former President Trump will hear arguments today over whether to place a government-requested gag order on Mr. Trump. It's not clear if the judge will rule immediately. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Hey, it's Chris Hanford, Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling. I did the thing over the weekend. I turned on my heat in the morning to get the chill out of the air, and then when it got too hot in the house, I turned on the AC. First world problems. But if you can't do that with your heating and cooling system, maybe you need Jeff Eddy and his crew to check it out. The guys at Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling, they're a small company, but you can trust them when it comes to these large home repairs because they've been doing it, improving it time and time again. I trust Jeff and his crew to do what's right. So if you go to kick on your heat or if you go to kick on your AC and you're noticing it's not working like it should, call these guys. Even if you've called somebody else already, you should still call Jeff and his crew because if you're trying to make that decision to repair or replace your system, Jeff's crew will walk you through every option and scenario so that way you can make an informed decision. While the other guys, they're going to pressure you to replace your system because they make more money that way. Not Jeff and his crew, but if you do need to replace that system, Jeff's team at Efficient will offer up to 18 months, same as cash financing on your next unit. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. So if you need help with your HVAC unit, go to efficienthvac.net or call 615-784-4424. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. 10:05, Monday the 16th. Lots of reaction on the Super Text line. Phone line's wide open if you got a comment. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. We've been talking about the Republican Civil War, which happened over the weekend, where it seems like you take one step outside of the narrative and you are just lambasted as an anti-Semite now. So, Charlie Kirk asked a question about how can this happen? How can Hamas, the Hamas holes, get through the Israel border? Was there a stand down order? He asked. He said it was a legitimate question. I think it is a legitimate question, 100%. And people immediately label him an anti-Semite. Unreal. So crazy. We also had Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, Vivek Ramaswamy going back and forth over whether we should blacklist college students for showing up to these pro-Palestine protests on college campuses across the country. And I tend to agree with Vivek. Dumb college kids do dumb college things. And a lot of these kids are just being influenced by their college professors and woke ideology at these mainstream universities. So it's not really their fault. And they'll probably grow out of it. They probably will. Just like we're seeing corporations grow out of the support for Black Lives Matter all over the country after they posted the paraglider on the Black Lives Matter Chicago Instagram account. I don't need to rehash that story, but it's just been crazy. It's been a crazy weekend. There's also a Timcast reporter, or she's not the reporter, she's the editor over at Timcast News. Her name is Cassandra. What's her last name? Cassandra McDonald. Now, Cassandra McDonald has been posting footage of the destruction in Gaza, and it's bad. It's honestly bad. You know, they say what Russia's doing to Kyiv is bad. I haven't seen any of this kind of footage coming out of Ukraine. And I'm not saying it's not warranted. There's definitely going to be losers in war. But this reporter at Timcast is posting footage of the bomb strikes in Gaza. And she's being called, a terrorist supporter and, pro-Hamas and all the names because you step out of that Overton window of what's allowed to be discussed. Now, Tim Pool responded to that on Twitter, and he had a great point. He said, people are hitting me up during war and getting mad at me for the opinions of people who work for me. LOL. Like, you think I'm going to fire or scold someone for their opinions? Do you even watch my show? Can we get back to that kind of vibe? Can we get back to that energy? Like, can we have discussions and opinions that vary from yours and not immediately call somebody an anti-Semite? Is that okay? Is that allowed anymore?
And actually grow from each other's perspectives and opinions?
Can we let
crazy?
Can we let new information change our mind? Is that allowed? How dare you say we should grow and learn, Mac? You're an anti-Semite.
Now shut up.
Shut up. Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. We like Matt Walsh. It's two sides of this extreme, right? You have Ben Shapiro, who's just seems to be calling for full-scale glassing of Gaza. And then on the other side, you have Matt Walsh on the Daily Wire, who puts out a tweet that's very poised and accurate. Matt Walsh says the absolute number one priority of the United States right now should be to protect American lives and avoid getting our nation involved in a disastrous conflict overseas. This should be so obvious and uncontroversial that it doesn't even need to be said. Well, I'm sure he's going to be called an anti-Semite for that. You're not allowed to have those opinions. The craziest thing. It is a wild news cycle. Wild. Meanwhile, you're going to have all of these refugees from Palestine, and they want us to take them. Democrat Congressman Jamal Bowman, who you may remember from the fire alarm saga. You remember Fireman Jamal? The guy that pulled the fire alarm?
Yes.
The news cycle is moving so fast.
I know.
We didn't even get to properly address the guy who pulls a fire alarm. That's the two-tier justice system in full effect. The media just swept it under the rug. There's no charges. Nothing's going to happen to him. But he's now taking a hardline stance, demanding that the U.S. take in Palestinian refugees. How about no? He said the U.S. needs to be prepared. Hard pass. Hard pass, Jamal. This is from the post-millennial far-left rep. Jamal Bowman, Democrat out of New York, has said that the U.S. ought to start bringing in Palestinian refugees among the ongoing Hamas-Israel war, which is soon expected to result in large-scale Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip, which probably is already underway. Bowman noted that 50% of the Gaza population are children. Fair. And that the international community, as well as the United States, should be prepared to welcome refugees from Palestine while being very careful to vet and not allow members of Hamas. I mean, I'm sorry if I don't have any, what's the right way to say this? Any faith that our government currently will be able to vet any of these refugees coming out of Palestine to prove that they're not Hamas holes. But Bowman, he says we got to do it. We got to be very careful, vet them, and not allow in any members of Hamas. Let's just tell the members of Hamas to just get a flight to Mexico and walk across the border. That's probably the easiest way for them to get in. Then you don't have to worry about the vetting. But We have reps Tom Tiffany, Republican out of Wisconsin, and Andy Ogles, friend of the show, Andy. They're stating their intention to bring a piece of legislation that called the Guaranteeing Aggressors Zero Admission Act, the Gaza Act for short. And this law that they're bringing aims to forbid the Biden administration from issuing visas to people who are seeking to live in the U.S. after leaving Gaza. To which that I say, good. I think we need to slow down the rampant legal immigration and taking in refugees until we can get our illegal immigration under control personally. So good on Andy and Tom Tiffany for bringing that legislation. I see a lot of people saying, but we have to. We have to accept them in. If they're so peaceful and good, why wouldn't Israel take them in? And if Israel's not going to take them in, and your argument is they're at war with Israel and they don't like Israel, well, why would we assume that they love America? Why would they assume that they love American values? So I push back on that immediately. Nobody's looking to take in these refugees. And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to take them. Meanwhile, you have those Republicans pushing back, introducing the Gaza Act, saying, no, we shouldn't allow them at all. But meanwhile, do I need to remind you, our border is still wide open. Wide open. We had an Iranian national arrested after illegally crossing into Texas just a little while ago. Border Patrol agents apprehended an Iranian migrant who illegally entered the United States on Sunday from Eagle Pass, Texas. Breitbart News is also reporting that the adult Iranian male is of fighting age and had illegally crossed the border with around 130 Venezuelans. The Iranian was apprehended and processed as a special interest alien, which the Department of Homeland Security classifies as a non-U.S. citizen who potentially poses a national security risk to the United States, such as terrorism or a nexus to terrorism. According to the DHS, the special interest alien document, illegal immigrants are given the classification once DHS analysis includes an examination of travel patterns, points of origin, and or travel segments that are tied to current assessments of national and international threat environments. It was Thursday, Border Patrol agents working the Eagle Pass sector apprehended 2 adult males from Lebanon, whose home country terrorist group, Hezbollah, pledges allegiance to the Hamas terrorists and is aiding them in their current war against Israel. So we got guys coming in from Lebanon. We got guys coming in from Iran. I mean, the border is wide open. And then, Democrat Jamal Bowman wants us to also take in refugees from Gaza. Crazy. Furthermore, the Post-Millennial reports Border Patrol agents working in the Rio Grande sector apprehended 14 adult males from Syria within the past several days. So, are you keeping score at home? We got Lebanon, Iran, Syria. And the apprehensions of Middle Eastern and North African illegal immigrants follow reports that 151 people on the FBI terror watch list entered the United States in 2023. This number is higher than the previous 6 years combined. With all the fears that people are having of sleeper cells, our border is wide open. And I will tell you this, if they've apprehended 151 people on the FBI terror watch list, more got in. 100%. Take it to the bank. Bet money. It's a safer bet that more got in. And in addition, tens of thousands of special interest aliens were apprehended at the U.S. southern border between October 2021 and October 2023. Tens of thousands, including almost 6,400 from Afghanistan, almost 3,200 from Egypt, almost 700 from Iran, almost 530 from Syria, 30,000 from Turkey, 1,600 from Pakistan, 164 from Lebanon, 185 from Jordan, 139 from Yemen, 123 from Iraq, 15,594 from Mauritania, and 13,000 from Uzbekistan. Special interest aliens. Those are the ones we caught. Those numbers from October 21 to October 23. And they do not include encounters by the Customs and Border Patrol's Office of Field Operations at ports or entry. And it doesn't count the 1.5 million gotaways that have snuck into the country under the Biden administration. And I would even argue that 1.5 million gotaways number is dangerously low. If they got away, how do we know? A source within Border Patrol told Breitbart News that the amount of special interest aliens illegally crossing the U.S. southern border is alarming and poses a threat to national security. I think anybody, you don't have to be a source within the Border Patrol, anybody that looks at these numbers can tell you it's alarming and poses a threat to national security. And we're just letting them walk right in. The Biden administration has allowed millions of illegal immigrants to flood through the U.S. southern border due to its open border policy since taking over the White House in 21, and it has created an existential crisis in the United States. In fiscal year 2023, more than 2 million illegal immigrants were apprehended at the border. If 2 million are apprehended, and everybody knows that Customs and Border Patrol, Homeland Security is underfunded, undermanned, and we're still apprehending 2 million, first, I want to say kudos to Border Patrol. You guys are outmanned, outgunned, underfunded, and you still apprehend more than 2 million illegal immigrants. Massive, huge. Kudos to those guys. They're working hard, and I don't want to begrudge them. But if 2 million got in and they were apprehended, what does that number look like for the ones that snuck by? It's a big border. It's not guarded everywhere. So what's the real number like? Are we talking 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, 7 million? Seriously, like, what's the real number? We're seeing the trains come with illegal aliens packed to the gills, just riding it on the top of the train all the way to the border. We know about the human smuggling. We know about the coyotes. We know that they're opening up the border and cutting the razor wire down there in Eagle Pass. And we're just supposed to, oh, this is fine. We should also take more refugees from Gaza. This is totally cool. We can handle this too. As Joe Biden says, this is America. We can walk and chew gum and crash bikes at the same time. Would love to get your thoughts on this. Text, call 615-737-9986. It is 10:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Twitter, True Social, Instagram, at Chris Hand on air. Mac Morey's producing. Ken Weaver's in the newsroom. And you, the fourth man of our crew, on the phone lines and Super Text line, 615-737-9986. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Still got that crash just east of downtown, eastbound 40 at Fairfield Avenue on-ramp. The right lane is blocked. A wireless service outage in Nashville affecting cellular data, voice, and text messaging. These stories and more coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 10:24 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. We're talking about politicians like Fire Alarm Jamal Bowman wanting us to allow in refugees from Gaza. And I love you guys on the super text line. 8640 said, all right, let them bring in any child under 8 with the caveat that they will live in a well-vetted religious Jewish family. So, I don't know. I feel like both parties would deny that. I do. 4202 said, Muslim countries in the region are refusing to let Palestinians in. Why the hell would we want them here? There are probably quite a few here already preparing the U.S. version of the attack. Yes, sleeper cells are absolutely something to be terrified of. Well, not terrified, but just
aware of, yeah.
Yeah, aware. I wouldn't say terrified. I have my own, protection. 4624 texts and said, no one wants the Palestinians, especially Jordan and Syria. 1833 says, why don't you just send them to New York City? They're so welcoming.
Oh, yeah, they'd love that. Sanctuary city.
They would. We were also talking about letting new information change your mind. And Jason texted and he said, I've allowed Mac to change my mind about cougars. So that's good.
Glad you've seen the light, Jason.
7662 texted in, and he said they should turn Gaza into a parking lot. Then they can rebuild luxury hotels on the oceanfront property. Ugh. That's the kind of stuff that just I can't vibe with, man. I really can't. I've watched a lot of the footage of what it looks like on the ground in Gaza. I've watched a lot of footage out of Israel as well. I don't think it's cool to cheer that stuff on. And I go back to my other point I made earlier. If we know that the leadership of the Hamas holes are in Qatar and Antony Blinken, world-class diplomat, is in Qatar, everybody knows they're there. Why aren't we going after leadership? Why isn't Israel going after leadership? I said we, but really this is Israel's war. This is Israel needs to defend themselves. We already have 1 foot in, and I don't want to get sucked into a war in the Middle East. I just don't. It seems like we have been in the Middle East almost my entire life for one war or another, and what do we have to show for it? Seriously, like go down the list. What Middle Eastern war could you say was a big success? Yeah. It's a short list. It's a very short list. But we know that Hamas leaders were in Qatar over the weekend, and yet they know that civilians are still in Gaza, and they don't go to Qatar, they go after Gaza. I don't know. I'm not saying that they shouldn't go after Gaza. I agree that a ground invasion is coming or started already, if I haven't checked the headlines in a little bit. But can't they do both? Can't they go after leadership too? All they're doing by bombing Gaza is strengthening the ones that survive and radicalizing them further. Why can't they just go after the leaders? I don't know. Maybe I'm not allowed to ask those kind of questions. But I just think that you need to be asking questions. Even Pierce Morgan jumped on Twitter over the weekend. He said, if you feel no sympathy for innocent Israelis murdered or kidnapped by Hamas terrorists last weekend, you have no humanity. Completely agree. Then he said, if you feel no sympathy for innocent Palestinians killed in Israel's revenge attacks on Gaza, you have no humanity. Be human. I don't like agreeing with Piers Morgan, but here we are. And I keep going back to the fact that none of this would happen if we had strong leadership in the White House. None of it. If we had a strong president who kept our military strong and we didn't have all this woke crap, none of this would have ever happened. I also want to tell you about what Colin Roog, who is the co-owner of Trending Politics, says that Israel will be deploying. It's going to get the space laser crowd fired up. We'll do that after the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And boy, that crash eastbound 40 just east of downtown has really backed things up on the south and east loops downtown Nashville. Got that Verizon outage? Channel 4 says a Verizon spokeswoman says a third-party fiber cut causing a disruption of service for some customers in and around the Midtown area of Nashville. Verizon says cellular data, voice, and text messages limited right now. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Sirens blared a short while ago over Jerusalem. Hamas terrorists firing on the holy city as Israel's new unity government opened parliament for its winter session, sending lawmakers to a safe room. It is day 10 of the war started by Hamas. And Monday news, Best Buy getting out of the DVD and Blu-ray business. The retailer says it will stop selling those discs after this holiday season. Redbox, by the way, still has 29,000 DVD rental kiosks. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
Hey, it's Chris Hand from my friends at USS, United Structural Systems. I'm officially on the schedule, getting my entire crawl space encapsulated. Now, I went down there, hadn't been down there in a while. The guys at USS tell me they're a service that you don't know you need it until you know you need it, and boy, were they right. We had a critter in my crawl space, poked my head down there, and I realized, oh gosh, it's a war zone. What do I do? And I knew exactly what to do. I called the guys at USS. Now, you've heard their commercials for years, and they've been advertising with us for a long time, but they've been in Middle Tennessee even longer, since 1994. And it's because they do good work, honest, hardworking, great guys. And if you're noticing in your crawl space standing water, if you're noticing wet basement walls, cracks in your basement floor, that's your house trying to tell you something, so you can give USS a call to check it out. They speak house fluently. 615-488-7855. With 25,000 satisfied customers in Middle Tennessee, I am confident you will be satisfied as well. Call USS today like I did, 615-488-7855, or online, USSTN.com.
There's limited fighting already on the northern Israeli border, and I wonder, what is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran? Don't come across the border. Don't escalate this war.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. 1036 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That was Joe Biden being gingerly walked through an interview and lobbed softballs on 60 Minutes. I mean, Joe says, what's your message? Joe says,
Don't.
You can see him just like the 60 Minutes interview. He's like, it's not going to cut it, Joe. Hey, you mean this, right, buddy?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what you mean, right?
Don't come across the border. Don't escalate this war.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Half asleep.
Yeah, he's like, what's your clear message to try and put a stop to this war? Don't.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Joe. Don't. All right. Terrible. It wasn't even the worst from the interview. This is him making the mistake that Israel is the 51st state in the union.
Can you foresee U.S. troops in combat in this new Middle East war?
I don't think that's necessary. Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country.
That's one of the finest fighting forces in the country. Whose country, Joe? Joe, whose country are you talking about?
Don't.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, the president sounds like he's asleep. He sounds like he's asleep this entire interview.
In this new Middle East war.
I don't think that's necessary. Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country.
Open your mouth when you talk, man. It's got marbles in there.
Well, and get some meat behind that voice. Where's the voice? You're whispering, you're down here, you're raspy.
Give the guy whatever you gave him before the debate with Trump, because we need to perk him up a little bit.
I mean, yeah.
This isn't working.
Israel has one of the finest fighting forces in the country.
Okay. He also goes on to say that occupation of Gaza would be a big mistake.
Would you support Israeli occupation of Gaza at this point?
I think it'd be a big mistake. Look, what happened in Gaza, in my view, is Hamas and the extreme elements of Hamas don't represent all the Palestinian people. And I think that it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza again. But to going in and taking out the extremists, the Hezbollah is up north, but Hamas down south is a necessary requirement.
It's necessary, but not the leadership in Qatar. That's base. They're off limits there. Crazy. And I do agree with some of this. Like, yeah, going in and occupying would be a mistake. You just would find yourself in another forever war until what some pundits are screaming to do gets done. You know, just wiping them off the face of the earth. I don't see a great way out of this. I don't. I think that Palestine is not going to be recognizable. I mean, it's already not. If you see some of the footage coming out of there from the bomb strikes, just insane. Absolutely insane. Biden was also asked about the $6 billion from the Iranian regime.
Is Iran behind the Gaza war?
I don't want to get into classified information, but to be very blunt with you, there is no clear evidence of that.
Wouldn't that be getting into classified information? I don't want to get into classified stuff, but
there's no clear evidence of that.
Okay. I don't. Why would he have to? Why would he have to say the part in front?
Very blunt with you, there's no clear evidence of that.
At this point, no evidence that Iran is behind any of this.
Correct. Now, Iran constantly supports Hamas and Hezbollah. I don't mean that, but in terms of did they have foreknowledge? Did they help plan the attack? There's no evidence of that at this point.
How? Are they just trying to cover for the fact that they gave $6 billion to Iran for hostages? How can you say there's no evidence of it? There's evidence that they support them, but there's no evidence that they were behind this. I feel like a comment like that should gain a lot more heat than what Charlie Kirk said about asking questions about how the attack happened. That Charlie gets lambasted and called an anti-Semite for wondering, how did this happen? He says, was there a stand down order in Gaza when the attack happened?
But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question.
And Charlie gets called an anti-Semite for asking a question, but Joe Biden can say that there's no evidence. I'm not going to get into classified material with you, but there's no evidence, and nobody causes a ruckus over this.
I don't want to get into classified information, but to be very blunt with you, there's no clear evidence of that.
No clear evidence. I feel like we should be more mad at the president than calling Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite. It's unreal. And Scott Pelley, I mean, he has this look on his face like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing? The entire interview. Come on, man. And even Scott Pelley knows that Joe looks very, very sleepy.
As we spoke to the president, his Secretary of State was in Israel. His defense secretary was at a NATO meeting on Ukraine. America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this.
Very tired. Very sleepy. It's got to be even worse when Scott Pelley from CBS 60 Minutes is like, very sleepy.
Hey, we weren't able to edit out the super sleepy parts enough to you not notice, so I have to now address it, that your president is extremely tired.
We would have let it slide if he didn't fall asleep and we didn't have to edit out 20 minutes of him taking a nap. But now we have to address the very sleepiness.
America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was all the directing that made him tired.
President's behind Scott Weiss saying that, hey.
Don't.
Are we allowed to air the footage of you sleeping, Mr. President?
Don't.
Okay, we won't. I'm going to add this one part about you being sleepy, though, okay? That's fair.
America's oldest president seemed tired from directing all of this.
Just makes me crack up. Yeah, Biden's directing all of this.
Come on.
He's directing everything. He is. He's directing all of it. But then, I mean, to Scott Pelley's credit, you know, it is a softball interview. He walks him through the interview, gives him basically the answers to his questions. You know, he says, don't. Scott covers for him. But he does ask, are you sure you want to run again?
Are you sure that you want to run again?
Yes, because I'm sure. Look.
Hell of a pause. That's all I got to say. I mean, he was quick with the yes.
Yes.
And then when he started thinking about why, he's like, oh, crap, I didn't plan this far ahead.
Oh, no.
I didn't think this one through. No, I don't want to run. Somebody help me.
Are you sure that you want to run again?
Yes, because I'm sure. Look, when I ran, I said the world's at an inflection point. The world's changing, but we have an opportunity to make it. So imagine if we were able to succeed in getting the Middle East put in place where we have normalization of relations. I think we can do that. Imagine what happens if we, in fact, unite all of Europe.
So we're going to unite the Middle East and unite all of Europe.
Nice.
That's the plan.
Super dope.
That's the new plan. Actually, yes, I am going to run, and it's for world peace. We're gonna unite everybody, and we're gonna go full Oprah method and send pallets of cash to everyone.
Yeah.
We're gonna start by sending pallets of cash to all of our enemies with a note that says, "Please don't be mean.
Be nice.
Be nice."
When I ran, I said the world's at an inflection point. The world's changing.
Doesn't it sound like he's like in the Joker movie? The world's changing.
But we have an opportunity to make it. So imagine if we were able to succeed in getting the Middle East put in place where we have normalization of relations. I think we can do that. Imagine what happens if we, in fact, unite all of Europe and Putin is finally put down where he cannot cause the kind of trouble he's been causing.
Did he start by wanting to unite the Middle East and then unite Europe and then also threaten death to another leader of a country in the same sentence? It's like, imagine if we could have peace in the Middle East, peace in Europe, and we put Putin down like the dog he is. It's okay. Whoa. That was a curveball. That's one way to do peace. If all of our enemies are dead, it'll be very peaceful, I promise you.
We have enormous opportunities.
We have enormous opportunities here. I mean, am I the only one that thinks that's a little weird? A little bit of a curveball. Imagine.
I think we can do that. Imagine what happens if we, in fact, unite all of Europe and Putin is finally put down where he cannot cause the kind of trouble he's been causing.
All right, yeah, we're gonna unite Europe and we're gonna kill that son of a gun. we're gonna kill him dead. All right, Mr. President.
Okay, whoa.
He has a plan. I mean, this is new.
Could we be united first?
That would be sweet.
That'd be awesome. I'd love that one.
He's like, we're gonna put Orange Man down, where he can't hurt anybody anymore. Whoa, chill. Kill Putin, jail your political opponents. It's world peace. World peace 101.
2936 says he channels all 7 dwarves. I love that. He's sleepy, he's grumpy, he's all of them.
He is. I'm surprised he didn't yell at Scott Pelley. I mean,
yikes.
3 steps to world peace. You unite the Middle East. Follow me for more world peace tips. You unite the Middle East, you unite Europe, and you kill Putin. That's it.
Everyone's been trying to figure out Biden unlocked the formula.
That's the cheat code to world peace.
Oh, gosh.
I just don't understand. Like, how did you mental gymnastics that from world peace, blatant death threat? Okay.
Yeah, and that's why you want to run again? Like, that's it?
Nailed it. Like, so you're telling us that you can't kill Putin in the remaining year of your term? No.
Whoa.
That's one of my promises for next election. All right, sweet. We live in a clown show. We do. It's undeniable at this point.
What a ridiculous clown show.
It's working.
It is. The clown show is working. All right. I don't know where to go from that. But world peace.
Gosh.
3 steps.
Even with a softball like that, still struggling.
The struggle is heavy. Heavy struggling. But this is our country on Democrats. Poor Joe. Somebody get him something to wake him up before these interviews, please. Anybody? I'm just starting to feel bad. I like the world peace plan, though. I do. It's 10:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. This is the Chris Hand Show.
What is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran?
Don't. Don't.
All right, we've got a crash, and it is still blocking the right lane, 40 eastbound, just past downtown. That's backing up the East Loop downtown, also the South Loop. Got a wireless outage in Nashville. Israel is evacuating villages along its northern border with Lebanon. Speakers race at a standstill in our nation's capital, and money news about Halloween candy and the end of an era in the home entertainment industry is coming. These stories at more at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, yeah, Halloween candy. That's coming up. Be careful. I heard a story last year. It was terrifying. A kid found a whole 9mm in a Twix bar. It's just, you have to be careful out there. Just the whole thing. So check your kids' candy. That's all I got to say. It's 10:57 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. I'm getting a lot of texts about Joe Biden's plan for peace, in case you missed it. Oh, this is Joe and his plan.
When I ran, I said, the world's at an inflection point. The world's changing, but we have an opportunity to make it. So imagine if we were able to succeed in getting the Middle East put in place where we have normalization of relations. I think we can do that. Imagine what happens if we, in fact, unite all of Europe and Putin is finally put down where he cannot cause the kind of trouble he's been causing.
So Joe's plan is unite the Middle East, unite Europe, and kill Putin. And a lot of you guys on the Super Text line have actually said, didn't Trump already get peace in the Middle East? Yeah, weird.
Bingo.
There's a little thing called the Abraham Accords. Yep, sure did. Sure did. But I think Biden likes to break things so then he can fix them, sort of, and say, "Look what I did! Is this awesome?" I mean, he did the same thing with insulin. Like Trump capped insulin at $35. Biden took it away. He waited a little while, and he's like, "I'm capping insulin prices at $35 because I love people that take insulin, and I'm looking out for you." So this is what he does: just breaks things, and he fixes it a little bit worse. And he says, "Look at what I did! It's awesome."
Trump was right, and Joe Biden was wrong.
That is true. Still true, Jake Tapper. I got one text from 2936 in regards to the Charlie Kirk comment. In case you missed that, we've been playing this all day. Charlie has legitimate questions.
But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question.
It is a legitimate non-conspiracy question. And 2936 texted in response to that saying, how did the IDF become the Capitol Police? Where was Ray Epps that day? We don't know. We don't know. It's 11 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Eleven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still got a crash blocking the right lane, eastbound 40, just east of downtown. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Verizon outage in Nashville. Some customers may be having difficulty with cellular data, voice, and text messaging. Channel 4 says a Verizon spokesperson says a third-party fiber cut's causing the disruption of service for customers in and around Midtown. The company says this type of issue usually takes about 12 hours to resolve. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Ines Delocutera says the Israeli Defense Forces troops are gathered for an expected ground campaign to end Hamas in Gaza. Everyone's high alert in the north, too.
We are seeing the IDF continuing to engage with Hezbollah on Israel's northern border. They're striking military infrastructure there belonging to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. An IDF spokesperson also had a warning for Hezbollah, saying that any provocation would be met with a deadly response, and saying that here Hezbollah and Iran are trying to essentially prevent Israel from waging war on Gaza, but that approach would not work.
Israeli communities in northern Israel are being evacuated. These of people that are living within a mile, roughly, of the Lebanese border. Elsewhere in our nation's capital, Rachel Scott says the House Speaker's race is at a standstill.
The conference is set to meet again later tonight, but optimism is quickly fading. One Republican told me he does not believe anyone could get the votes to become the next Speaker of the House, and the pressure is certainly on. The deadline to keep the government funded now just about a month away.
Jim Jordan won the GOP nomination for the job. And in money news, Jim Ryan with a prediction out for Halloween.
Americans are cutting spending on a lot of things, but not on Halloween. The National Retail Federation predicts consumers will spend $3.6 billion on Halloween candy this year, up from $3.1 billion last year.
And the end of an era coming in the home entertainment industry. Best Buy getting out of the DVD and Blu-ray business. The retailer says it'll stop selling those discs after the holiday season. By the way, Redbox still has 29,000 DVD rental kiosks. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
.05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. What's going on? It's Chris Hand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. If you're just jumping in the car, you're heading to your lunch break, joining us, well, I got some news for you. You ready for this? How long is Mike Pence's presidential campaign going to last?
I don't know.
Apparently, we're finding out not much longer. The presidential campaign for former Vice President Mike Pence is now facing a potentially existential crisis due to rising debt and increasingly limited cash flows, according to a report from NBC News. The campaign told NBC that it raised $3.3 million in the third quarter with $1.2 million cash on hand and $620K in debt, which will be reported when its campaign finance filing is due to be made public. The former vice president chipped in $150K himself, but the reported figures placed the Pence campaign in a very, according to this report, precarious financial position when compared to Republican rivals or even President Biden. Listen to this. The Biden reelection campaign, which, have you seen anything really happening for the Biden reelection campaign? I don't even know if they have an office. They have like 4 employees. They raised $71 million in the third quarter. Mike raised 3.3.
Oh,
it's rough.
Dang.
When I first read, so before I got to the next paragraph on that about how much Biden raised, I saw 3.3 and I was like, yo, that's pretty good for Mike. I didn't think that was bad.
Yeah, $3 million. That's a lot of money.
You're low energy. You have no good takes. Everybody from the MAGA side of things hates you already.
Yep.
Everybody from the other side hates you for your shock therapy practices in Indiana. I thought 3.3 was a pretty good haul for him. And then I saw that the Biden reelection campaign got $71 million in the third quarter. Oh, damn, Mike. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. Ron DeSantis, he also had the floor mopped with him by Joe Biden. He raised $15 million in the third quarter.
Okay, so 5 times as much as Mike Pence.
Yep.
Wow.
That's the cost of being in second.
And then
former UN ambassador Nikki Haley finished the third quarter with $9.1 million.
Wow.
Why does she keep texting me for $1 here and there if she's got $9 million on hand? Swear. She's always texting me.
She likes you.
I don't know how she got my number. But to block it. Hey, friend, it's Nikki Haley here. Can I get $1? No. Stop.
He's got 9 million of them.
Yeah, I'd rather go buck to Pence because I feel bad.
Oh, sorry, bud.
Yeah, here's $1, man. I feel bad. But the report comes as Pence is scrambling to qualify for the third Republican primary debate on November 8th. Under the Republican National Committee criteria, candidates must be able to account for 70,000 individual donors to qualify. The former vice president was previously forced to scramble to make the first debate this past August, hitting the threshold just weeks before. He has hit the required polling threshold, but currently finds him in 5th place nationally, according to 538's national polling average. So Mike might not even make the debate. It's tough. It's tough out there for Mike. We do have the speaker race going on as well. Jim Jordan is widely expected to be the next guy for the job. Though it didn't stop Politico from putting out a hit piece on him. And from other conservatives, and I used air quotes, conservatives, floating a deal with Democrats. Remember when everybody roasted Matt Gaetz for working with Democrats to get rid of McCarthy? Well, now there's other Republicans working with Democrats. Let's start with a Politico hit piece. Jordan to face a challenger in floor vote Tuesday. There will be an alternative for the rational part of the Republican conference, an opponent of the hard right congressman says. What? The rational part of the Republican conference? Is that like the nicest way to say rhino? Is that just a nice way to say rhino? Politico writes, a faction of Republicans that strongly oppose Jim Jordan is vowing he'll have a challenger during the House floor speakership vote on Tuesday, according to 2 House Republicans familiar with the planning. While they have not yet nailed down a specific name, they believe the person they ultimately land on will not only be able to block Jordan from the speakership, but also give cover to those who want to vote against him. The challenger will certainly take arrows from the far right flank of the conference, which is pushing hard for Jim Jordan. There will be an alternative for the rational part of the Republican conference, said an unnamed House Republican. If you're a House Republican and you're going to be unnamed in a Politico report, like you're a rhino. You're a rhino. And you're worse than other rhinos. A rhino like Kinzinger or Cheney will tell you what they're thinking, but you're going to be unnamed in a Politico piece. You're a rhino. Politico reports it's an unwelcome development for Jordan that will further complicate his rocky bid to get 217 votes on the House floor. Few House Republicans had predicted he would face a competitor after he won the nomination on Friday. Jordan was the second speaker nominee this past week. Of course, we all knew what happened with Scalise. He couldn't get the votes And, that's what happened. In a subsequent secret ballot vote where members registered whether they would support or oppose Jordan on the floor, results allegedly weren't much better. 55 House Republicans said they would continue to oppose him for the speakership. So what is happening right here? Why is Jim Jordan being opposed? And who is doing the opposing? I think these are important questions to ask. And upon digging, I found out some things. I did. I found some things out. Now, one guy whose name kept coming up was Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is a Republican out of Alabama. And he looks like he's wearing a toupee. Not relevant to the story, but I just wanted to point it out.
Side note from what we're talking about, but
just a side note. The man looks like he has like the hair of like a Lego figurine. DC Drano tweeted that out. Someone said Mike Rogers has Lego hair, and now I can't unsee it. But Mike Rogers is opposing this, okay? And he's openly organizing a coalition of Democrats to join with rhinos to elect a uniparty speaker. Why is this happening? Well, according to DC Drano on Twitter, he says Mike Rogers, Lego hair Mike, is chair of the Armed Services and bought out by defense contractors. Jim Jordan, on the other hand, wants to stop Ukraine funding. So the military-industrial complex is funding Mike Rogers for years. So they have a tight leash on him. And he's going to be their, according to DC Drano, their congressional war funding simp. Got to get that money for war. And Jim Jordan doesn't like the war in Ukraine. Now, upon more digging for Mike Rogers and who this guy is, I found an article from Alabama.com, AL.com. Outrageous. Republicans rip Mike Rogers for floating speaker deal with Democrats. U.S. Rep Mike Rogers out of Alabama is facing intense backlash from his own party this weekend after saying he would not back Rep Jim Jordan for the Speaker of the House and open the door to working with Democrats to choosing an alternate candidate. And he should be receiving backlash. Remember how much backlash there was for Matt Gaetz? He was like, he's working with Democrats to get rid of McCarthy. Well, this guy is actually working with Democrats to make sure that Jim Jordan will not be Speaker. And because Jim Jordan opposes war and Mike Rogers is the chair of the Armed Services, you got to keep the war going, right? It's all about the military-industrial complex. Mike Rogers told reporters Friday that there was nothing that Jordan could do to earn his support. And in a closed-door meeting, he reportedly asked Democrats what the two parties could do to make a deal that a majority of representatives could be happy with. Well, I know we have some listeners in Alabama, so write down that name, Mike Rogers, and let's get him out of there. Other Republicans are firing back. Based Mike Lee went on Twitter and said, it's outrageous that Jim Jordan has been nominated by the party, has the support of McCarthy, McHenry, and yet Mike Rogers out of Alabama and a few House Republicans would rather work with Democrats. If you're a House Republican, please vote for Jim Jordan, not Hakeem Jeffries. Yeah, Matt Gaetz gets roasted for working with Democrats. But Mike Rogers, a Republican, is actually having closed-door meetings with Democrats to vote for somebody other than Jim Jordan. And I guarantee it's because Mike Rogers chairs the Armed Services Committee. Mike Rogers is exactly the type of neocon, warmongering Republican that has no business in our party anymore. Mike Rogers wants to grease the wheels of the military-industrial complex. Jim Jordan wants to cut Ukraine funding. So Mike Rogers is going to go work with Democrats. What a garbage Republican. Marjorie Taylor Greene posted on Facebook, Mike Rogers' ruby red district in Alabama is right next to mine. His voters will not be happy if he makes a deal with Democrats to elect a speaker in order to block Jim Jordan. Stick with Republicans, Mike. Remember your district. Seems like a lot of Republicans forget about their district when they get to Washington, D.C. Certainly feels like that's commonplace. But, everybody's weighing in. Mike Rogers. Remember that name. When they said Matt Gaetz was working with Democrats, that's not the same as this. Closed-door meetings with Democrats to oppose Jim Jordan. Rogers is seen as a strong McCarthy ally, and he called Matt Gaetz and the rest of the vacate traitors who paralyzed the House. 3 of Alabama's other Republican congressmen, Gary Palmer, Barry Moore, Jerry Carl, they've all issued statements saying they will back Jordan. A couple others out of Alabama not addressed Jordan's speaker bid or Rogers' comments this weekend. Former Rep. Mo Brooks took to social media saying that he hopes Rogers was misquoted. He said, "It shocks me that Mike Rogers says he prefers to work with socialist Democrats to elect a House Speaker than work with America First Republicans." Hopefully Rogers is misquoted. It's unreal. Other Republicans, including Ann Wagner of Missouri, Don Bacon of Nebraska, Mario Diaz-Balart of Florida, have also said they will not vote for Jordan. Republicans can only spare a few votes if they want to pick up and get Jordan as Speaker. But the majority is not huge. We need every vote. But it certainly seems like the neocon rhino parts of the Republican Party are exposing themselves. And when they show you their true colors, believe them. Please believe them. Super interesting. Just got a text that says, yeah, but Rogers has since decided to support Jim Jordan for Speaker. Hey, Matt, can you check that? Has Rogers changed his mind on supporting Jim Jordan for Speaker? If he has, he's just as spineless as I said he was. Because he can't take a little internet bullying. Did he jump in and say that?
Jordan flips key holdout Mike Rogers to support him. That's from The Hill.
Good.
He announced Monday that he'll support Jim Jordan.
All right, well, it's hard to do show prep during a show.
Quote, Jim Jordan and I have 2 cordial, thoughtful, and productive conversations over the past 2 days. We agreed on the need for Congress to pass a strong NDAA appropriations to fund our government's vital functions and other important legislation like the Farm Bill.
Interesting. So Mike Rogers couldn't take a little bit of online bullying. He couldn't deal with the Lego hair insults. JT texted in. He said, I'm from Alabama. Mike Rogers is a perfect example of Alabama politics. A huge good old boys network. Clinton tunes welcome, while Trumpers are not. Just in politics. They are all about the military-industrial complex and doing deals. Stephanie says, more than likely, his constituents got on his ass. More than likely, indeed. But here we are. Jim Jordan's going to need all the votes he can get for the speakership. I'm excited to see where this goes. It's going to be interesting to watch. I think when it comes down to it, we're going to have Jim Jordan as speaker. I think that's the right move. I was out on Scalise when Adam Kinzinger tweeted, Scalise is the right choice for Ukraine. Whoa, red flag. Huge red flag. It's 11:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Twitter, True Social, Instagram, at Chris Hand on air. It is 11:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got a wireless outage in Nashville, according to Verizon, and a Middle Tennessee State University football staffer charged with indecent exposure. And, of course, we'll have the latest on the Israel-Hamas war coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is 11:24 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I got a report from Colin Rugg, co-owner of Trending Politics. I follow him on Twitter, X. Solid guy. Anyway, this is gonna make the space laser crowd go nuts. You ready for this? Just in, Israel will be reportedly using their new Iron Beam. I see your look.
Iron Beam?
Yeah. It's a laser beam that can take out enemy rockets.
It's eerily familiar.
Now, while an interceptor missile from the Iron Dome costs $50K, the laser beam from the interceptor costs as low as $2. The beam uses 100 kilowatts of power, 100 times more than an average home uses.
Wow.
So they're shooting them out of the sky with lasers. Now, this has been reported for a while. National Defense had the debut story of this Israeli-made high-energy laser back in March. I had to do the counting on my hands. I was like, what's 3? January, February, March. Okay, got it.
Good job.
Woo! Israeli-based Rafael Advanced Defense Systems debuted its high-energy laser weapon system that will augment Israel's Iron Dome air defense system for more modern threats. Called the Iron Beam, the system is designed to neutralize a range of incoming targets, including unmanned aerial systems, rockets, artillery, and mortar rounds, using a 100 kilowatt or more directed energy weapon, said Ran Ghazali, executive vice president of Rafael's Land and Naval Division. Listen, this is his quote. "We can actually focus the beam to the diameter of a coin in a 10-kilometer range." Wild.
That's insane.
Of course, you know the space lasers Maui fire crowd is going to be going nuts over this one.
Yeah, 3143's already texted in Maui.
Is that what he said? Maui?
Maui.
It could have been a wrong number. There's no telling that was about the same thing. But I mean, a laser beam defense system. Now, of course, everybody thought Maui was done by lasers, and then they said the lasers couldn't take out anything blue. Do you remember that? Do you remember those videos? Yep. It's like, ooh, look at all the stuff that's blue that wasn't burned up because lasers can't mess with blue stuff. So, if that's true, we're going to see a lot of blue rockets, I would assume.
Yeah, that would be the defense. Yes.
Paint those rockets blue and then go full send because we got to get past the space laser.
2889 says, hopefully it's more accurate than stormtroopers.
Hopefully. We'll see. I mean, but a space laser, this one isn't a space laser. This is a ground laser. But I mean, it puts out 100 times more power than an average home uses. They conducted a series of successful live fire tests on this in March of 2022, where the demonstrator for the Iron Beam, it caught in its blew up stuff, right? Tons of different scenarios. It intercepted UAVs, mortars, rockets, anti-tank missiles in a bunch of different scenarios. Following those tests, the Israeli government's Directorate of Defense Research and Development funded the technology. Now, this report from just March of this year said that it could be deployed by 2025 as part of Israel's Iron Dome. But Colin Rugg on Twitter is saying that Israel is reportedly sending it into action now. Interesting. This to me is one of the more interesting stories to come out of this. Listen, you could use a missile that costs $50,000, or you could use a laser beam that costs as low as $2. If this becomes effective, does it change modern warfare as we know it? If every country in the world gets one of these iron beam laser defense systems, then missiles essentially are null and void moving forward, wouldn't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
What's the point in making missiles if they're just going to get shot out of the eye by a laser beam?
Lasers are in.
Lasers are in. Missiles are out. Unless you paint them blue. It's 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now in Nashville, Verizon says a third-party fiber cut is causing disruption of service for some customers in Midtown specifically. Channel 4 says a Verizon spokeswoman says this type of issue usually takes about 12 hours to remedy. Elsewhere in Middle Tennessee, News 2 says a former Middle Tennessee State University employee is charged with indecent exposure after allegedly showing his genitalia to a young girl in a Target store over the weekend in Murfreesboro. According to staff directory, Nicholas Woodley served as the director of player personnel for Middle Tennessee State University's football team but has been suspended. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken continues his talks with his Israeli counterparts today as the number of dead on both sides since the Hamas attack over the weekend has reached more than 4,000. Blinken has been reassuring the Israelis about the U.S. commitment to Israel and has also tried to talk about the possibility of sending humanitarian aid to the Gazans affected by Israel's retaliatory strikes. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I recently did a workshop talking about some of the missteps of the investing industry, some of the biggest mutual fund companies out there. You probably recognize these names: Fidelity, Vanguard, Raymond James, Edward Jones, actually using data and information from their own websites as I walk through this. Now, one of the things I was talking about is diversification and how investors could be in for a rude awakening at the amount of risk that they actually have in their portfolios, and they don't even realize it. Now, the example I like to use to help people understand why why do these huge companies do this? I mean, these are big companies. And you go, well, why? Well, think about the diet industry. In the diet industry, you had things like this: fat-free this, fat-free that, fat-free that. And what happened is they did a study. They were looking at diabetes in children. And what they found was that when they went fat-free, they actually ended up with more diabetes rather than less, because what they substituted for fat was sugar. Now, what happens in the mutual fund industry, they tend to keep costs low by investing in very narrow areas of the market that are inexpensive to manage. So what happens is the investor ends up with more risk than they think that they've got. Now, why do they do that? Because you are actually attracted by low costs. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't use these big mutual fund companies. It just means that you have to be eyes wide open. As an investment firm, we help people sidestep these things because sometimes you have no choice. You have a 401k, you're dealing with these fund companies, and you can't go anywhere else. So what we do is we help you go around these landmines. To set up an initial 15-minute phone call, go to our website, paulwinkler.com, or you can just scan the QR code right here. We look forward to talking with you.
Hey, a cold front might be coming through, but nothing will warm you up like financial stability. Hey, it's Chris Ann for Paul Winkler and Paul Winkler Inc. Me and my wife, we didn't have a financial plan before we got with Paul, but now we do. We're going to be able to pay for college in the future, weddings for my girls, anything they need, we're going to have it covered because of our plan with Paul and his team at Paul Winkler Inc. Now, if you know Paul, you know his radio show, you already know he's a smart guy, but did you know he holds himself to a higher level of fiduciary standard than is even required? He does. And because of that, I'm required to tell you that I'm paid every time this commercial airs. That's true. But it's because I got to sit down with Paul, have my questions answered in a way that I could understand, that I decided to become a client myself. Now, listen, if you don't have a financial advisor, now's the time to get one. And Paul and his team can help you out. Here's one of the reasons why I suggest calling Paul. Nothing his team does is done on commission. Nothing his team does is done on commission. That's huge. So you know when they're trying to help you make decisions for your family, they are decisions for your family, not for their family, because nothing's done on commission. They're not making money based on what you choose. Nothing is done on commission. Plus, the education that they provide is evidence-based and backed by Nobel Prize-winning research. Education is their most important mission. You should check them out. Every office is run by a degree planner with over 20 years of experience. You can feel the difference between Paul's team and the rest, so do what I did. Talk to one of his team members. Set up a complimentary 15-minute phone call right now on his website, paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com, or call 615-851-1950. 11:37 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Max, did you see the text we just got from Anthony?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so Anthony texted and he said, why do people insist on doing Walmart activities in a Target? That's sick. What happened?
He's referring to a story that Ken Weaver just covered in his newscast from Channel 4. A Middle Tennessee State University football staffer was arrested yesterday after police say he exposed himself to a young girl at a Target. He's the director of player personnel, Nick Woodley.
Jeez. Did they fire him?
It's been suspended.
Suspended.
They're going to continue to gather more information, Chris. They need some more information. He resisted arrest too, but they needed some more info.
I assume it's all on video.
I mean, it was in a Target, so I would assume so as well.
And then you wouldn't exactly resist arrest.
No.
Did it say what Target it was? The one on Old Fort Parkway?
Yep, that's it. Right next to that's your Target.
It's not my Target. Don't put that on me. Don't shop there.
This is Chris's Target.
I don't go to that Target.
The victim told police Woodley complimented her outfit before moving a basket away from his groin, exposing his genitals.
Sick.
It's awesome.
People are sick.
That's disgusting.
I don't know how you just suspend him.
Jeez.
Like, people have been fired for less, right? Ray texted and said, no, that's definitely Target activity. You know, the place that doesn't know which bathrooms should be used. Fair enough, Ray. Fair enough.
Good point.
I swore off Target years ago when they started having gay dog clothes. So that's a bridge too far for me. It's a bridge too far.
But seriously, that's disgusting, man. But they're disappointed they take these matters seriously.
Oh, we're very disappointed. Thanks, MTSU. Nailed it. Oh, my gosh. In other sports news, you guys had a big win over the weekend, right?
Yeah, Thursday. Yeah. Got that dub.
No, over the weekend.
Chiefs?
Yeah.
It was on Thursday.
Well, sorry. Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour is number one at the box office. Are you guys going to hang a banner for that?
No, we've got real banners that we choose to hang.
Do you think the Chiefs will hang a banner for that? Is that something you guys are going to do?
Oh, yeah, I saw Swift in SNL as well.
Number one opening weekend. You put it right next to the Super Bowl banner. I think that'd be a good look. Rob Gronkowski, who is, unquestionably a better tight end than Travis Kelce.
Please.
Ever. Will be. Just objectively speaking.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's why he's the same age and retired while Kelsey's getting 1,000-yard seasons. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? Kelsey's also drinking Bud Light and getting boosters. And Rob Gronkowski, meanwhile, is speaking out against men competing in women's sports.
Can't argue that.
No, he's the NFL Rob Gronkowski, NFL legend Rob Gronkowski, spoke out against the idea of men playing in women's sports, telling Fox News there's really no argument. Nailed it. There's a video of him. He said, "Hey, Rob, should men be allowed to play in women's sports?" He went, "Nah." Nailed it. In a statement, he said, "There's really no thoughts to really even share. It's the obvious. There are men's sports for men. There's women's sports for women. It should just stay like that. It's just as simple as that, man. There's really no argument. There should be no conversation about it." He's absolutely right. There's the Trump statement that's always so funny. He's like, "Oh, if I owned a WNBA team, I would just recruit LeBron and we'd win tons of championships."
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah. Imagine Gronk playing in a women's football league. Just
oh my God.
Beasting. Just beasting. So Rob speaks out against men and women's sports. Travis Kelce drinks Bud Light.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying it's not really up for debate on who's the better tight end anymore.
Oh, please.
Joe Biden's the best flanker back ever.
I forgot his the flanker back.
You didn't forgot that?
Yeah,
I'll never forget. I'll never forget where I was.
His legacy.
His legacy is a flanker back. He was so good they retired the position. Travis Kelce, I mean, he's taking L's all over the place, though. Not only is his girlfriend wildly more successful than he'll ever be, but his big ad campaign for Pfizer and the boosters, apparently it's not working. It's not. The new commercials, the double up everything. Pfizer has slashed revenue estimates as COVID vaccine sales hit a slump. Oh no. Pfizer had been expecting up to $70 billion in sales. $70 billion. But now we're back to a more reasonable $61 billion. Pharmaceutical giant Pfizer, under CEO Albert Bourla, has cut its earnings projection as the demand for COVID vaccines and treatments is not what they had expected. So where's your boy at? I thought he was endorsing these things. Going to get people lined up, get jabs in arms.
He's not following through.
Just like the Chiefs will this year.
Runner back.
We'll see. Pfizer obviously is looking for money on this vaccine. Their earnings have been slashed, and to that I say good. Cheers. In other sports news, do you like how I'm just going on a sports tangent?
Yeah, this is great. Of course, it's trashing the players that I like, but that's great.
That's the only reason why I've made this segment. And so I found a story and I was like, man, I could really crap on Mac. And then I was like, ooh, I could do this one too. Let me find something else to insult Mac with. No, but this one isn't insulting you, but Chiefs suck. The NHL is easily the least woke league in all of sports.
It's not a debate, I don't think.
Well, it's getting they're going on offense against the woke. The NHL has expanded its ban on LGBT pride gear to include hockey stick tape.
Oh, really?
You can't even have rainbow tape.
No rainbow tape.
Nope.
Wow.
The move by the NHL follows league policy changes earlier this year, restricting the use of rainbow-colored pride jerseys after backlash from players who refused to wear the LGBT promoting apparel. You remember that story?
Yep.
What was that guy's name? I know his name.
Oh, gosh.
Provorov on the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah.
He refused to wear the pride jersey. His jersey ended up selling out, went to number one. And he refused it for religious reasons. He was an Orthodox Christian. Wasn't going to do it. But, of course, now you see things like the NHL's coming under fire from LGBT groups. All right. The LGBT groups, are they buying season tickets?
Yeah. I mean, were they really the demo? I mean,
that's something that always crushes me. It's like, you're not the demo, man. You're not the demo. So later.
Well, and the thing is, if you like hockey, you're going to keep watching.
Yeah.
If you really are, if you're gay and you love hockey, you're probably going to keep watching anyways.
The game hasn't changed.
Nope. Game's the same.
The move by the NHL follows league policy changes earlier this year, restricting the use of those rainbow-colored pride jerseys and pregame specialty warm-up sweaters after backlash from players who refused to wear the LGBT-promoting apparel. The change is part of a much larger policy reversal announced in a memo last week affecting what is permissible and not. And not only Pride Nights, but also Black History Nights, Hockey Fights Cancer Nights, Military Appreciation Night as well. The memo was sent to every NHL team. It stated, players shall not be put in the position of having to demonstrate or where they may be appearing to demonstrate personal support for any special initiatives. A factor that may be considered in this regard includes, for example, whether a player or players is required to be in close proximity to any groups or individuals visibly or otherwise clearly associated with special initiatives. I think this is good. Get the woke stuff out of sports, and you can have your causes outside of hockey, but don't bring it on the ice. That's cool. Outsports. I know everybody goes to Outsports. They're an LGBT-oriented sports site. I wouldn't search it on your work computer just to be safe. But Outsports was enraged by the announcement. It said that the message the NHL is sending is hockey is not for everyone, and that the NHL had recently made disastrous choices marginalizing or outright erasing the LGBTQ community. Do you think they're marginalizing them or outright erasing? I don't think so.
And hockey isn't for everyone. Football, nothing's for everyone. I mean, shoot, I'd get destroyed on the rink. You kidding me?
Like Travis Kelce on the football field.
Okay. We don't lie on this station.
All right. It's just that's the opinion driven.
Yeah, that is not the information fueled.
I mean, listen, I think that this is good. Get the woke stuff out of sports. Let it get back to like families, like, and just have regular fun. Can we just have regular fun? I know somebody's going to ruin it. We're not allowed to have good fun.
Oh, gosh. Hey, the Preds are back.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great to know.
I heard you talking about it on the drive with Brian Wilson. How come you don't ever want to do a sports segment on my show?
Hey, I'll do a sports segment. Let me know.
Like you go on all these shows and you do segments for everybody. And then when it comes to the Chris Hand show, we get no Mac Maury content.
I'm right here.
We get nothing. I asked him if he wanted to do a segment, and he just hit me with a Mike Pence.
I don't know.
That's what he said. So, all right. Could have just given me an honest answer, Mac. It's 11:48. Matt Murphy is going to be checking in with us, letting us know what's coming up on the Murphy Show at noon. He checks in with us next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 11:54 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Matt Murphy joining me in studio, standing in solidarity with me in my shirt earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a more forceful stand had I actually worn a nice plaid shirt today. But I guess what Dan said was paisley. He did not say plaid or anything like that. But I mean, I
think he said pastel.
Pastel, yeah.
I think if you're keeping score at home, Dan Mandis was harassing me this morning on the Gang of Four Amigos for my shirt.
Super dope.
Can I say something to you, Chris Hand, here and now? On this Monday,
please,
October 16, 2023, I'm not going to live in a world. I'm looking at you. I'm not going to live in a world where Dan Mandis is allowed to criticize what other people are wearing. That's not a world I'm living in. Mr. Three Shades of Gray. Not doing it. And he was doing it while wearing some sort of Christmas sweater.
He did have on a Christmas sweater. Not up for debate. Dan's sweater had little teeny tiny snowflakes.
Oh,
it was made in China by little teeny tiny hands.
Do you do that, by the way, when you clothe? I mean, does your wife do a lot of the clothes shopping in your household?
It all depends.
So mine is too. I mean, if I'm out and I see something I like, I might grab it. But for the most part, and we have established a no China rule because we're trying to do our own little part in our own little part of the world. It's difficult, man.
It's hard to do a no China rule.
It is hard to do a no China
unless
rule.
you want to spend like Gucci prices on stuff.
I mean, I appreciate buying a Bangladeshi item, but they're pricey, baby.
I'm pro Bangladesh.
Yeah. Vietnam, I mean, any port in a storm, anything but China. Morocco, I'm all about it.
I just try, yeah. I mean, if I can do it and like I'm aware of it, I'll try to stay away from it. But I try to also just not make myself aware. Because it's just so hard. Like, you can't, you go down the list. There's, how do you get away from that?
If you want to know how we got in the situation that we're currently in from an economic standpoint with the Chinese, just turn over everything in your house.
Yeah.
I mean, and it will depress you.
Well, it's, and everybody talks about World War III. I'm like, guys, we are in no shape. 90% of our medicine is made over there. Like, I don't think people understand we have to decouple before we can win World War III.
It gives me no pleasure to tell you this truth, that we would currently get our asses kicked by China.
100%.
And it has nothing to do with our military capability.
They would just cut us off.
They would just shut us down. And they would suffer, but guess what? They don't care about their people suffering.
Yeah, they're fine with that.
They're all good with that.
It's like, I remember how people got over toilet paper in this country.
Well, and it's similar in that vein to what we're dealing with Hamas and Israel. It is not to say that the Israelis are perfect. They are not. It is not to say that there are not some concessions that might need to be made over there. But one side doesn't mind all the death, and another side is very bothered by all the death. Does that mean that they don't cause some of it? No. But one side doesn't care. The other side cares.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
I made up a new nickname for Hamas today with the help of a super texter.
Is this Hamas? You came up with Hamas, didn't you?
No, well, I've moved on from that.
Okay, all right.
Hamas.
Can I take Hamas?
I want to give you this one too.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Hamas holes.
That's pretty.
You like that?
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Right?
I like that.
It flows.
I like that. Speaking of Hamas holes, I'm the only guy that you know. I heard you bagging on Mike Rogers earlier. I'm the only guy you know that's interviewed Mike Rogers multiple times, I bet.
Mike Rogers is the rep from Alabama that was going to work with Democrats to get somebody else. He said he's
shows you how much of a squish he is. He takes this big stand like 4 days ago, squish.
Couldn't even make the weekend.
Couldn't even make the weekend before he squishes back. He's always been a Republican squish.
And he has, his hairpiece looks like Lego hair.
Gosh.
He looks
It's bad. It's worse in person, man.
Really?
I mean,
it's like, why are you using that much product on that toupee?
Well, that, and you see, like, the brow gap, like the gaps.
Oh, he doesn't glue
sideburns,
it in?
No, where your sideburns are to come down, the sideburns are flapping up like little mud flaps. It's bad. But even worse, his voting record. Even worse, how he's represented his district. He's all in on the war machine. That's what that is.
Military-industrial complex, 100%.
Yeah.
So are you going to be roasting Lego Man Mike Rogers?
I will be discussing Mike Rogers today. We're going to talk about a little Nashville murder rates.
All right.
We're going to do that because those are going up, and I think we might need to pay attention to what's going on under the new non-leadership of the new mayor, Freddie O'Connell.
Soy Boy Freddie.
Yeah,
all right,
sure.
Good news coming up on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Daria Albinger. The U.S. is trying to broker a deal with Egypt to open its crossing with Gaza now that an Israeli ground offensive appears to be imminent. But Egypt says that won't happen until Israel agrees to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza. National Security spokesman John Kirby says the White House is doing all it can to get civilians out of harm's way.
Key interlocutors in that discussion are Egypt and Israel. Obviously, we're going to keep talking to them. We're hopeful that gate can open as soon as sometime today. But again, it hasn't yet. And we just got to keep working at it.
Meanwhile, there are more signs that ground invasion could come soon.
We are seeing the IDF continuing to engage with Hezbollah on Israel's northern border. They're striking military infrastructure there belonging to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. An IDF spokesperson also had a warning for Hezbollah, saying that any provocation would be met with a deadly response, and saying that here Hezbollah and Iran are trying to essentially prevent Israel from waging war on Gaza, but that approach would not work.
ABC's Inez de la Quatera. Another legal setback for former President Trump in the federal case which accuses him of inciting the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol.
Noting that she herself was the target of a Trump social media post just last night, Judge Tanya Chutkin said the former president doesn't have carte blanche to implicitly encourage violence. She says despite his status as a political candidate, no other criminal defendant would be allowed to conduct a smear campaign in the middle of a case. Her order will